So thank you, Jonna. Thank you, Lasse. Thank you, dear friends from Accordi. It's a privilege to be here. Good morning to everybody. It's been a remarkable 10 years working with you. You're a big inspiration for us. So you are all very lucky that you have people like Jonna, Lasse, and people from Accordi here, because they really know what they're doing. They're combining practice and academic research in one approach, which is, for me, a real source of inspiration. So thank you so much, and thank you for having us. I'm working with about 25 colleagues on societal challenges in the Netherlands. We work with universities nationally and internationally. We do about 50 projects a year. We train about 1,000 people a year, and we write books. I write books. We publish white papers each year to try to get participation processes on a higher level, in a way that societal challenges will be resolved in less time, in less money, and with less frustration. That's what we're there for. And most of the time as neutrals. So we bring know-how, and we try to bring expertise, practice, and we're happy that we can share those experiences within our network. And I think in the presentation of Lasse, which was really wonderful, there are kind of similar things we have noticed. One of these is we see in the northwestern part of Europe that there are trends in society we have to cope with. So people are demanding more from companies and from society. That was also in the presentation of Lasse, I believe. It was in the PhD from Vera, something like that. People demand more. They know more, they have access to information, they have access to data, and they want to use that information. They come up and stand for themselves. They want that in the solution that has been decided by government, that their interest is taken into consideration. And if not, there will be protests. If not, they really are going to argue and find ways to try to frustrate the process. In the Netherlands, we've noticed that there is less respect for government. I'm not sure whether it's happening here in Finland, but this is something that's going on over the last decade. We got lots of pensionados. So people like me, old, gray, and having more time. I don't have that time yet, in a couple of years maybe. But these people get together and try to, let's say, interfere in the process of permitting. That's their main job. We got aspect in legislation about the transparency of government decision-making processes. We call that the vote. There's a law for that. So everybody can ask for all information, including WhatsApp and email, about, I want to see whatever has been communicated amongst decision makers in the process of decision making. And they ask for that. We got hundreds of public officials just answering these questions of the civilians. We see social media getting a more important role. We see people communicating positions without really communicating the underlying facts to prove that what they're saying is wrong. They even use alternative facts, which haven't been researched, but they present them as fact. These are all reasons why in the Netherlands we see that participation is getting more difficult, that permitting processes get into delay. And if we look at trends like this, and there are at least a dozen other trends. Do you remember, recognize these trends? Yeah. Kind of similar, and probably even more. And there are two ways to deal with it. And I've clients to do both. The first way of doing this is trying to get rid of it, trying to avoid it. I don't want these people to interfere, so I'm going to exclude them. I'm not going to include them in it. So I do as if they never exist. I start a participatory process, but I don't invite them because I know that they are going to be against it, and I don't want to make my work too difficult. That's happening a lot in the Netherlands. And this is not very successful because in the end, these people get to court, and the court in the Netherlands will rule that participation was not thoroughly enough and they have to do it all over again. But still, there is this group of managers that try to keep focus small and not include people. The other way around is to embrace this misery, and accept that there are people out there that have information, that have data, that have time, that care about the region, and that care about the future for themselves, for their children, and we try to get them on board in a more constructive way. So we have to think about how can we include them without spending too much time and too much money on it. So how can we do that on a professional way? So we really care, we really are interested, but it doesn't mean that we have to decide everything with all of us because that's taking too much time. So we have to organize that in an orderly manner, trying to get things done. And what I'm just mentioning is that there are two ways of looking at it. We got the Machiavellistic way on the left side for you, and we got the mutual gains approach on the right side. Machiavelli, who wrote the book The Prince, yeah, in English. He was kind of intrigued because he wanted to let's say, serve as Prince Borgia about how power really works. And he did research for that. That was the time we were talking about 15, 1600. So everybody was intrigued by how laws would work. We were thinking about our art, we were trying to use our common sense. And since then, we know how power works, and we see that in decision-making processes, the laws, as described by Niccolo Machiavelli, are still in place, and they did work for centuries. Because what we see is that if we look at the infrastructure we have right now, we have the ports, we have now the cities, the banks, the insurance companies. That was all kind of built through a power-driven approach, a distributive approach. A couple of people getting together and decide for the rest, and the rest had to accept that. But that doesn't work anymore. Just showed you the trends. Things are different now. We have to move on. We have to include people. We have to think of a proactive approach of including people. And there is where the mutual gains approach gets in. That's an integrative approach. So we listen, we care. We want to focus on interest, not responding to positions. We want a win-win. We want cooperation. We want not focus on the person, but we want to focus on the content. We're not going to convince others, but we're open for joint fact-finding. And we do not have a preset solution, but we are open to what gets out of it, as long as it's a gain for everybody. So that's a different approach. But risk managers don't like mutual gains a lot because of all these things like open, listen, communications, thorough process. They're all risks in there. So what we try to do with the strategic stakeholder engagement is trying to do this a little bit more business-like, with step-by-step approaches, with toolboxes, so that even those who are risk avoiders are willing to embrace this approach. And that's where this model comes in. So I'm just checking whether this works. Oh, yes. What we don't want is trying to convince each other with positions. Because if we're talking about positions feel very firm. I'm against, or I'm pro, or you're an idiot. All positions. And they are so easily communicated. But it sounds firm, but in fact, it's very flexible, a position. Because if the data set is not complete yet, one additional fact makes that I say, okay, I was against it, but if this is true, then I'm in favor. So it's very, very dangerous to negotiate on positions. We shouldn't be doing that. And that's what's happening a lot. And especially in the new world, if you look what's happening in the world right now, it's about bashing people and negotiating on positions. This is not going to help. We want to negotiate based on interest. And interest is your deeper advantage of something that is really important to you. That's about your health, about your safety, your personal safety, the safety of your family, the safety of your country. It's about income, having a future, having access to education. Those are the significant things. It's not that one new fact means that, okay, I don't care about the health of my children. That's not how things work. So we want to negotiate on interest. And I'm going to tell you a short story about how things worked when I, in 2004, were asked to come to help with the port expansion of Rotterdam. This is part of the Netherlands, and where you see you can see the port expansion. So it's kind of there's the coastal line, and then all of a sudden there's something new. That is new build in Nature 2000, the European nature conservation law. I'm not sure whether that's the proper English translation. So and the Port of Rotterdam has tried to get that done for 20 years. And twice it ended up at the highest court, and the highest court ruled that the Nature Conservation Association were absolutely right, that it was wrong. Then the CEO of the Port of Rotterdam, Hans Smith, gave me a call, and he asked me, Marc, I know that you have something new called strategic stakeholder engagement. Can you come and help and make sure that we get our port expansion? And I said, I'm sorry, Hans, I can't do that. You already tried it twice, and if you keep doing what you did, you will be having what you had. So that is not going to work. I believe that there's a different approach. We have to make sure, that was the second law of the simulation, that there will be a solution where all stakeholders, including the nature conservation associations, will have gain. Will have a significant gain in that. So we need to change the scope of the project. We need to make it a program. So that was what was happening, and he kind of accepted that. So we started. But after 2 weeks already, this was a project for 7 years. And after 2 weeks, Hans Smith came down from the 16th floor where the CEO is having office, to the project floor where I just started with my team. I had a team of 3 persons. And he had the newspaper, the newspaper of the province of Zeeland in his hand. And the upper half of the newspaper was a picture of kite surfing people. Beautiful picture. And then there were 2 headlines with all beaches in Zeeland and the southern part of Holland will be closed because of the port expansion. And there was a tear-jerking story underneath, which was not correct at all. But Hans said, this is the 4 times that happens. It happened also in the previous round we did with the NGOs, and they have been a pain in the, how do you say that correctly? You know where? Let's see what you're worth. Solve this for me. And I noticed, I heard what he said. If I was not able to solve this problem, I was out of business there. So I made a call with Rinse van der Woude. Rinse van der Woude is the CEO of the kitesurf, the Dutch Kitesurf Association. And I asked him, Rinse, I'm just curious, I'm trying to find out who is behind this article in the newspaper. And he said, you don't need to look any further, Marc, that was me. So, okay, interesting. I said, I would like to talk to you. Can I come to your office? He said, no need, I'll come to you. And then I get afraid. If they want to come to you, they feel strong. And it was the case. So we were allowed to come at the board level, and I on the board floor where we would meet with the kite surfers. And I did dislike that because I didn't want to be, let's say, compared with the CEO. So I down-dressed, I put my jacket off, I rolled up my sleeves, and I welcomed them. And then all of a sudden there were colleagues from the port and colleagues from the ministries. They were very afraid of the conversation that would start. So we got somebody from who is for the responsible for coastal zoning, responsible for all the beaches, all kinds of for the ministries, and they were kind of like say coming here to protect what's theirs. And I said, okay, you're allowed in the room, but you sit over there and you keep your mouth shut because I want to do this process. And then the 2 guys came in, the chairman and the vice chairman. And they sat opposite me, and they take this chair, and this is what I did. They came in with Bermuda shorts, Hawaii shirts, and a wig like that because of the sea salt. They just had been kite surfing. So they came, sit opposite me, and this is what they did. Cross their arms, chin on the chest, and moving like this. Not a very open position. Agree? So I thought, well, let's get this rolling. So I asked, okay, guys, tell me what's the situation? And really, the only sentence they said is, Marc, we are against. That's all they said. Is that position or interest? Position. Yeah, easy. This is easy. Gets more difficult. So it's a position. So I thought, okay, I need to ask an additional question. So what are you against that? And they said the port expansion. So at least we're in the right movie, in the right negotiation. Okay, so that was clear. And then I needed to know, how do I get from position to interest? So which question do I need to ask? Anybody? It's quite easy. The why. Yeah, that's strategic stakeholder is all about the why. So I asked them, why are you against the port expansion? And then the answer was, Marc, these are our waves. And then the guy from the ministry started coughing. And I understood what they do. We said, please, we're in a conversation here. And I thought, okay, I need that. So why are those your waves? So it's our beach. Another guy started coughing. Please, let me do myself. So I continued asking questions. And if you're asking, let's say, a why or a similar question for 3 or 4 times, you get in the irritation zone. I don't know whether you have kids, but if kids keep asking why, you're getting crazy. So I felt that there was going on this year as well. So I already thought, oh, this is not going well, and I can say goodbye to this project. But I tried. And then after 10 minutes of trying, I had my hands in my hair, and I walked towards them. I said, please, gentlemen, please, Hinze, I simply do not understand. You're saying it's our water, it's our waves, it's our beaches, And there are people who think about that differently, and I understand that. And I have to explain to people in the ministry and people at the port that we can't have a port expansion because you want to kite surf here. And I know what they are thinking. What are they thinking, Marc? What they are thinking is, please take your kite and your board and go kite surf somewhere else for about 6 months. And when you return, there will be an even better beach and a more beautiful beach. And in the meantime, we've been able to save the Dutch economy, to create jobs, and so please stop whining and let us do our work. And while I was saying all this, I noticed that there were all kinds of, it was kind of a little bit red. This picture is 2 years later, and he lost most of his hair in those 2 years. But you could see all the veins. I could even see his heart beating in his neck. So he was really getting really angry. And then he stood up and he said, he stood right in front of me. He said, "Marc, you don't understand. This place on the beach of the Maasvlakte, the present beach of the Maasvlakte, is the only place in Europe where we, kitesurf community of about 3,500 people, can kitesurf 365 days a year. We have kitesurf schools. We do kitesurf lessons every day. We organize kitesurf tournaments, the best of the world. People get here. We organize kitesurf travels. This is our life. This is our economy. If you take this away from us for 3 months, our society is dead. Position or interest. Finally, we got there. So that's what happened. And what also appears is that we got underneath underneath the position, now we know what the interests are, and here's norms and values. And it appears that this is a real strange society. They have strict rules. Those kitesurfers have really good positions in industry, but there is a rule of the game. If it's 6 before, they're out of there. They start kitesurfing. They stop whatever they're doing. They go out there, and they have a good quality of life. So I was really interfering in what life really means for them. So that was the first line I tried to explore. Then the second question, and I'm curious whether you know what that one would be, is I want to see whether I can get their interest into this golden triangle. So what can I do to include them in our plan? So what questions should I then ask? So from position to interest is the why, but what questions should I ask to get them included in our strategy, in our solution? Anybody? What do you think? What question would you ask me? How? I said, how? I don't think you should even try. So no, I'm not. I don't think how is the right question. Anybody else?
I thought you're really worried about.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing is, if I want people to move positions, and they're pretty much against on what we're trying to do, the next question I can do is trying to find out what their biggest problem right now is in the present situation, without the new initiative. In the present situation, what is your biggest problem? What is your nightmare where you get awake all sweaty in the middle of the night over and over again? I want to know what your nightmare situation is. So I asked Rinte and his colleague, what is your biggest problem right now? I said, well, Marc, that's easy. Do you know how long of a walk it is from the parking lot to the kitesurf beach? I said, I don't really know, but it's a long walk. Yeah, it's 1.2 kilometers. So, okay, and you have, how many people do you have in a lesson? 8. So 8 boards, 8 kites. How often? Yeah, we need to walk 3 times to get the stuff over there. And then you have to start 8 hours of education. So I thought, we could do that differently if we are going to get this port expansion, and we want kitesurfers to be there in the future, which I think should be the case, then we could see whether we could make the parking lot move to a better place, or maybe we can get a container in one of the dunes so that you can leave stuff there. Is that possible, Marc? I don't know. But if you don't join the process, we'll never find out. I can't promise yet, but I can do my best. So we can, with the parking lot, we can create a kind of a container where you can put stuff. And if we are moving sand from deep sea to the coast, we can drop some sand, and will there be a reef, and will it then be possible to make higher jumps? And then they didn't really give an answer, but I saw some water dripping from their mouth, so I guess that was a yes. And then after about 10 minutes, Lindsay said, Marc, if we can sort out the problem for the 3 to 6 months together, and half of what we discussed just the last 10 minutes is possible, then I promise from tomorrow we are very much in favor of Port of Rotterdam. So they have been in a struggle with Port of Rotterdam for 12 years. And within the hour, things changed. It was a difficult hour for me because I had to ask questions. I had to make sure that these people on the second row kept their mouth shut. I needed to be focused. And afterwards I said, Marc, you made this life really difficult because it's so easy to be against something. And that even feels good. And now we had to think about why we were so angry. What could be done? So we needed to open up our minds, and you really helped us there. So this is one of the things, how we got them on board. And in one of my books, he wrote a piece about what happened in their minds and how they moved. Okay. Is this kind of clear? Because this is the essence of what we're doing. So we're focusing on interest, but we're not solely focusing on interest. What I did with the kite surfers was asking what their main problem was. In all your projects, if it's about green transition or whatsoever, and you're going to do an initiative in a certain region, in that region has happened a lot in the past. And people are angry and frustrated about what has happened in the past. Now you come with a new initiative, and you add a little to the region, and you only want to talk about the drop, because that's what you're here for. That's what your project is all about. And the people in the region, they want to talk about the buckets, the bucket full of misery. And if we don't include the bucket full of misery, they will be projecting their frustration to your projects or to the process, and they will, because they do not always know why they are that angry. We need to process that in a careful way. So with the kite surfers, I had to find out what they were angry about, what their frustration was, and I included it. And I took something out of the bucket full of misery, and I included this in the plan. And therefore, the integrative potential of the solution was bigger. We call that ZOPA. We increased the zone of possible agreement. So what we did is we put the bucket full of misery in there, and we used elements of that because if we resolve a problem from the past, if we can resolve something that is important for the stakeholders, then they might shift from against to pro. The thing is that we need to make sure that we're not, let's say, just, let's say, paying them to not be destructive, but we need to make sure that there is a story, that we need a new frame. So this wasn't about Port of Rotterdam anymore. This was about creating a sustainable region where there was money for port expansion, but there will be more nature conservation, there will be social restructuring, and there will be use of the beaches for recreational purposes. So we created a bigger plan. I will get back to that later on. If you do not do this, if you refuse to include the frustrations of stakeholders, they will find different arenas to object. So we start with trying to do things in dialogue, but if they do not feel heard, feel that is listened to them, they will go to media. And media will listen. And if media pays attention on it, then the politicians will pick up and will make a case out of that because they like media. Politicians like media. If that is still not successful, they will go to court. And what we've also learned from your presentation is that there's an increasing a group of people that think that the participation by law is not good enough. We need to do more, and we also see that judges tend to listen to these stakeholders, and there will be significant delays. We saw that in one of the charts presented by Lasse as well. And if that's not working, then we see that the tendency is that people will choose for other forms of resistance, like violence. We have hand grenades attached to wind turbines. We got bullet letters, significant problems, death threats. We've had it all, almost every year. That wasn't the case years ago. So what we see is that these arenas that took about a decade to get from dialogue to violence, and now it appears to happen within the year, if we do not listen. So we need to listen. This is something that, this is the border expansion. And what you see on the left lower corner, the yellow bit, that's the border expansion. All the other dots and triangles are projects I included in the program. There were projects for increasing nature in the Rotterdam region because there was a lack of nature. Agreed with the nature conservation associations. We included social reconstruction. We included improving of the infrastructure so that emissions in the surrounding villages went down. We included Euro S, so specific types of trucks weren't allowed to drive through the city centers. We improved the air quality with about 20%. And if you look at the right corner, you see that when we started, there were a lot of formal complaints. And then all the triangles underneath are covenants, agreements we signed with these stakeholders. And you see what happened with the formal complaints. So people felt included. Their interests were formally taken into consideration. And at the end, everybody was happy with the outcome. And we started building 6 months earlier than the permit was there. And we only needed 75% of budget, including all these projects. It's crazy. But things went so smooth because everybody was pulling at the same end of the rope. And there was money for most of these projects. The thing was, politicians weren't able to pull it off. But because we said, without port expansion, no additional nature and no social reconstruction, but without social reconstruction, no port expansion. Without additional nature, no port expansion. So we interconnected that, interlinked that, and that worked really, really well. So people felt taken seriously, and we made the difference. So what we've learned is, I noticed the words like license to operate and social license to the growth. We use new wording now. So there's this licensed future because you have a permit and you can do so. And we see that industry and government are focusing on licensing processes. They think about projects and trying to get things done. What is more important even right now is to have a granted future. People will need to be happy to have you in your neighborhood. So you have to have a trustworthy relationship with your stakeholder as a company. Or if people do not want you nearby in the future, then things will get tough. Politicians will make different decisions because they like to do things in favor of the public. So as a company, next to working on your licensed future, you need to work on a granted future to have a development perspective. And what we've learned is if we do that if we want to develop an approach, what we did is we saw that there are 4 building blocks necessary. The first of them is that we need to work from a vision. We choose for the mutual gains approach. And everybody within the organization should work from that approach, which is an inclusive strategy based on bringing things to a solution, an inclusive solution, and building trust. And if half of the team is building trust and the other half is just focusing on money, then things go wrong. The second building block is a step-by-step approach. I will show it in a minute. The third one is about developing leadership, because this is a different approach than people are used to. You have to stand wood. You have to be able to keep up the faith in this approach, even when there will be resistance from management or other groups. And the fourth one is we need to embed this in your organizations. So de sla deze over dan. Sorry for you. And then we got this step-by-step approach. That's the second building block. So the first building block is about the triangle, that's working from a vision. And this is about a step-by-step approach. We got a yellow surrounding, which means that this is all about negotiations. We got a blue circle for kind of a blueprint approach, step by step. That's where we manage all interaction with stakeholders. And the green one is about the internal stakeholders. In the Netherlands, we spend more time on internal stakeholders than on external stakeholders. I'm not sure whether that's the case here as well. But before you can go out there and talk to stakeholders, you have to do a lot of communication internally. So we need to include that in strategic stakeholder engagement as well. And then we got 6 steps in the preparation phase, because everything, what we have learned, if things go wrong, it's because of lack of preparation. The gain is in the beginning. We need to prepare. We need to make analysis. And then we can go to the execution. The preparation is only 10% of the time. It's no more than 10% of the budget. But we quite often skip that and go straight to the third quadrant and start talking and negotiation, which is wrong, which is utterly wrong, which we shouldn't be doing. But it happens all the time. If you want to make sure that you can stick to your plan, stick to your budget, then you have to prepare. So analysis, strategy, deriving strategy from the analysis, achieving consensus, and then the execution. That's what this plan is about. 10 steps with a toolbox for every step. And I just show you 1 or 2, and then I'm finished. So what we see when we're working on projects, and the old approaches are all based on power. So I'm in the center, and I'm selecting stakeholders I want to talk to. And then you will be surprised that there will be new stakeholders you weren't aware of, that they had interest as well. And I will go to court, and the court will rule your process wasn't thoroughly enough, and you need to do it over again, or you need to change your plans. What we do is we're not going to do that. what we do is we put the project goal in the middle, and we're going to drive issues through the eyes of stakeholders. Why would the stakeholder be pro or against this project? And if we have these issues, then we can ask which stakeholders have interest with these issues. So it's project goal, issues, stakeholders, interest. And what we promise with stakeholder engagement is not that there will be no resistance, but there will be no surprises. We have been prepared for whatever questions that will be coming. And we will build a structure where all parties included together will answer all these questions. And in the Netherlands, the judges accept that. I think that you designed the process very carefully. And yeah, there will be always some person who is against it. But since this process is so thought through, I'll accept it. So no surprises, but it's getting more and more complex because there are more issues and there will be more stakeholders than on the left side. And we transform this mind map into schemes in Excel or online tooling. And what we do is we, on one side, we list stakeholders, and we categorize them, and we categorize the issues on the opposite. And per stakeholder, we know the blue side is how much does their interest weigh, and what is their interest. And the red one is about the tension. Am I in favor or am I against? So if we add things up, and it is dark blue, means I have a significant interest, and dark red means I'm very much against. So dark red, dark blue is see you in court. Dark blue and green is BFF, best friends forever, and everything in the middle. So if I have been working for 1 or 2 days to get a scheme like this, I know what my priority issues are. I know what my priority stakeholders are. I know which coalitions I can expect. So I know where to focus on from the start. And I even know what the standard participation level per stakeholder would be, because if you have a significant interest for more than one issue, you should have a higher participation level, even if I don't like your face. So we make use of schemes like that, and that's the basis for our strategy. And we make management reports out of this. This is not language which we use for stakeholder engagement management, but the management and the board of organizations like schemes like this. So we've been translating our soft skills to hardcore management information, because we need to convince those who are not into stakeholder engagement, but are thinking more in terms of risk. So this is just a visual translation. And then, if we have had this strategy, we go to techniques like joint fact-finding, or techniques like enlarging the pie. And in the end, in the third quadrant, we will use a package deal. And the main lesson there is there is only a deal if all of us agree on everything. Partial deals are forbidden. Can't be the case. We will be continuing negotiating till we agree upon everything. And we do not accept a gain in 5 out of 10. We only accept an 8 out of 10, because we want people to be proud if they go back to their constituencies and they see what came out of this. So that means significant work in this process. And the last sheet I want to share with you is you need to include reporting and keep stakeholders involved in showing the progress we really are making. being transparent about the problems that occur, involving them in how we're going to resolve these problems. And we have neutral parties making these monitoring reports and reporting to the steering committee. And this is of the same project 12 years after the start of the project, and you see that most of these batteries are green and there are 3 still red, so there's still work to be done. But it's so important that you include monitoring, evaluation, and adaptation in your stakeholder engagement processes. So that's about it, what I wanted to share with you. I hope it was useful. I have some concluding remarks, I guess, but I will make sure that you get the sheets. And stakeholder engagement should be about the licensed future and not only about the licensed future, but also about the granted future. Dialogue should be based on trust building and less on risk management. The entire organization and the shareholders should work from one vision. We should integrate ambitions and interests of stakeholders. And therefore we need to embrace complexity. Stakeholder engagement is all about preparation. The gain is at the start. Work on joint languages for strategic stakeholder engagement. That was the movie clip you all missed. Sorry about that. So, but the lesson from the wombat is you better listen to the stakeholders because everything is interconnected. If you ignore that, you're doomed. So, thank you.